In the land of Israel, war had come. The mighty Philistine army stood against God's people, the Israelites. Their banners waved in the wind, their swords gleamed under the sun, and their warriors stood ready for battle. But this was no ordinary battle. From the Philistine camp emerged a giant, Goliath, a warrior over 9 feet tall, covered in bronze armor from head to toe. His breastplate alone weighed as much as a grown man. His spear was as thick as a weaver's beam, and the tip was made of solid iron. His shield-bearer walked ahead of him, but Goliath needed no protection. He was the terror of the battlefield. His voice boomed across the valley, shaking the very ground beneath him. "Why do you even bother lining up for battle? Choose a man to fight me. If he wins, we will be your servants. But if I win, you will be ours." The Israelites trembled. Warriors who had fought many battles now felt like children before this giant. No one dared to step forward. Not even King Saul, their tallest and strongest warrior, could find the courage to face Goliath. For 40 days, Goliath came out each morning repeating his challenge. And for 40 days, the Israelites remained silent. Could no one stand against this giant? Far from the battlefield, in the rolling hills of Bethlehem, a young shepherd named David tended his flock. He was the youngest of 8 brothers, not a soldier, not a warrior, but a boy with a heart full of faith. When David was sent by his father to bring food to his older brothers in the army, he heard the challenge of Goliath. He saw the fear in the eyes of his people, and something stirred within him. "Who is this giant that dares to defy the armies of the living God? I will fight him." The men around him laughed. "You are just a shepherd," they said. But David's heart burned with righteous anger. He wasn't looking at Goliath's size. He was looking at God's power. Word of David's courage reached King Saul, and David was brought before him. The king looked at him puzzled. This was no warrior. He was just a boy, no more than a teenager. "You are just a boy. How can you fight this warrior?" But David stood firm. He lifted his chin and spoke with conviction. "When lions and bears came for my sheep, I struck them down. The same God who saved me then will save me now." Saul saw the fire in David's eyes and finally nodded. He offered David his armor, but when David tried it on, it was too heavy. He shook his head. "I do not need armor. The Lord is my strength." David stepped onto the battlefield. His brothers watched in horror. The soldiers whispered among themselves, "A shepherd against a giant?" Goliath stood before him, towering, laughing, mocking. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? Come closer, boy, and I will feed your flesh to the birds." But David did not flinch. He reached into his pouch and pulled out a single smooth stone. With steady hands, he placed it in his sling. He looked at Goliath, not with fear, but with faith. "You come with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the Lord." The battlefield was silent. David swung his sling faster and faster, and then he let the stone fly. The stone whistled through the air, cutting through the wind. It struck Goliath's forehead with a mighty crack. The giant's eyes widened. He took a step back, then another, and then he fell. The ground shook as Goliath crashed to the earth, his massive body lying still. The great Goliath had fallen. The Philistines, seeing their champion defeated, turned and ran in fear, with just a sling, a stone, and unshakable faith. David had won. This story is not just about a battle, it's about faith. David was not the strongest. David was not the tallest. David was not even a soldier. But he believed. What giants do you face in your life? Fear, doubt, hardships? The world may tell you that you are not strong enough, not skilled enough, not important enough. But remember, no giant is too big when you stand with God. Even the smallest among us can overcome the greatest obstacles. For God doesn't look at the outward appearance. He looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. If you trust in him, if you stand in faith, Victory is already yours. In reference, with God, all things are possible. Matthew 19:26. Subscribe to Heart of Wisdom for more videos.